We are allergic to using our money to further our reality. Understand this, a people who are politically disorganized will be economically disorganized. Your economic disorganization will feed your political disorganization. Show me anybody who's strong politically. You got to be strong economically. And I'll tell you why.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Black Wealth Connect. I'm your host, Fabrice Omenkoy, and today is probably one of the most amazing days I could probably have to be able to have a very, very special guest with me. The guest that I have with me has, done a lot of things around the world and very impactful, incredible Pan-African activist and a psychologist. So without any further ado, I want to introduce the one and only Dr. Umar Johnson. How are you, sir?
Peace and Pan-Africanism. Glad to be here. Shout out to my entire Melbourne, Australia family. One love.
Awesome. Look, it's incredible to have you here today on the podcast. Honestly, I know that you do a lot of traveling. And first and foremost, I just want to say I really appreciate your time, brother. Just want to kick it off by saying, how has your experience been in Australia? Like, I know I saw your first video when you touched down to Australia. You were in Bondi Beach.
Yes.
And I think you were looking for the brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Yeah, just walk me through. How's your experience been so far since you touched down?
With regard to our people, it has been tremendous. A lot of love, a lot of support, a lot of camaraderie, fellowship. As far as Australia itself, I can really appreciate the convenience of use here in the country. And what I mean by that, your society is a much more patient and a much more accommodating society. So for example, yesterday I was able to get on Wi-Fi for free, outside. You can't do that in the United States. You can do it in the airport, but there's few places where you can get on Wi-Fi for free just walking down the street, so that was kind of amazing. And then also the airport, when I went to fly to Queensland yesterday, I was prepared, to open up my bag and take everything out and take my shoes off, and nobody had to check my plane ticket or my ID, and it was just very smooth, unlike America. So I was like, wow, I would guesstimate that the length of life here is probably longer than in the United States because it just seems a lot more calmer and a lot more peaceful here. Yeah. I'm sure there's racism. I know there's racism because I know some of the history here, obviously with the extermination or the minimalization of the Aboriginal culture or what have you. But I do kind of like the pace of the society. Maybe America could learn some things, from Australia in terms of the pace. Having been on every other continent, this might have been the smoothest place to actually work and move about. But most importantly for me was the camaraderie, the love, the young people, the messages, the hugs, the photos, the debates. It's really been good because I didn't know what to expect because you guys are so far away from the rest of civilization. Correct. So I didn't know what to expect coming. But as I said, when I first landed, I anticipated that my first visit would be a memorable one. Every place I've ever been, I can almost remember the first time I went there. My first time in New York, my first time in Chicago, my first time in Paris, my first time in London, my first time in Beijing, my first time in Toronto. You never forget the first. And this is also an experience that I will never forget as well.
That's amazing. You know what's incredible, because I do like the first time I met you was in one of my very close friends' office. Shout out to Jack and Associates. He's a lawyer that's doing incredible things. And one thing I noticed when we stepped downstairs, because you were also coming down too, what was amazing is the amount of love people show you. It's unbelievable. I want to know, how does that feel? Because is this a global thing, or is it just global? So how does it feel for you because of the stuff that you're preaching? And, and especially because it is moving around globally, it must be making a massive impact. How does that make you feel?
I would say I appreciate it from the perspective that I want to show our children, and especially young African men, across the diaspora that you can become quote unquote famous, quote unquote successful, if that's what you're looking for. You can become successful and famous without selling your soul. You could become successful and famous by serving the people. You could become successful and famous without becoming an entertainer or an athlete, you know? And so with my example, which in many regards, to be honest with you, was very much unexpected and unanticipated. Like I never thought my work, you know, would become YouTube famous, if you would.
Yeah.
I never anticipated that with my views, you know, very traditional Pan-Africanist views, I never thought I would be a hit on TikTok. You know, I never even heard of TikTok until people said, you better get on there because you all over there. And I get on TikTok and I see even white women and white folks and Asians and Arabs imitating my voice and doing voiceovers and everything. Wow. And I said, wow. So that whole social media piece, that was completely the ancestors, because I'm the most untech person you know, and you realize I don't have a YouTube page.
Yeah. I've noticed. You're always featured on other people's YouTube
so that
channels.
Means people are taking it and sharing it. I have no page, you know, so I just appreciate the love. It's really the greatest motivation, like,
that's
because
beautiful.
People don't see the behind the scenes to this. You know, it can get tiring. You know, you got to deal with the hate.
Yeah.
You got to deal with the undermining. You know, there's a lot that come with being Dr. Umar. It's a blessing, but it's also a curse.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you out and about amongst the people and you get an elder who come up to you, just give you a hug out of nowhere and say, keep going. You're my inspiration for still being here.
Wow.
You know, when you get them words from the elders, it hit different because they've been around. They've seen Malcolm and Martin. They've seen Fred and Huey. They've seen them. They've seen Kwame and Nkrumah. They've seen Thomas Sankara. So when the elders come and say something to you like that, it really sticks to you. And I think it's the words of our people that are most responsible for keeping me focused.
Today we come to you with a special message and a request. The African Libraries, Arts and Cultural Centers needs your support. Your donations are very important. This is how your contribution helps us. First, we pay for the premises. This is a beautiful space, 375 square meters, in the heart of Footscray, Melbourne, Australia, on the beautiful Maribyrnong River. Another thing that your contribution goes to is running some of these programs that we do. Reading group, art workshops, history workshops, you name it. We try to engage our young people at a young age and also try to bridge the gaps with our elders. So please support our GoFundMe and help us get to our goal. Thank you.
How did your journey actually start? How did you get to a point, you know, coming from Philadelphia and just, how did you get into becoming a psychologist and becoming in the Pan-African movement? Please walk me through your journey.
I would probably say one of the most unknown things about me, or one of the greatest misconceptions, is that I'm new to Black consciousness, because a lot of people never heard of me until I went global or international back in 2010. But I had already been a Garveyite. I had already been a Pan-Africanist. I was already organizing and working in the community, but I was limited to Pennsylvania. So if you didn't live in the 67 counties of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, you may have never heard my name.
Got you.
So when I blew up in 2010, I think a lot of people thought I was brand new to this. They don't know I've been into Black consciousness since I was a 9-year-old fourth grader in Philadelphia. My elementary school, they had a Black history class. It was not required by the school district, because, you know, the school district is run by Caucasians. But that particular white principal, that particular Black assistant principal, and that particular Black history teacher, Mrs. Green, who I coincidentally ran into a couple years ago, you know, they created this Black history class in that school only. And it just so happened to be my neighborhood school. So my introduction to Black consciousness, Pan-Africanism, and public speaking was all at the George Meade Elementary School in North Philadelphia. This is the same neighborhood that Bill Cosby and Meek Mill are from, right? We're all from the same neighborhood.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, Jill Scott, you know. And so anyhow, that Black history class was my introduction to Black consciousness, Pan-Africanism, and it was a Black history contest in February, Black History Month. Oh, wow. And so I entered the public speaking contest, won first place in fourth grade, won first place at 10 years old in fifth grade, and I never shut up since. Now, coincidentally, the Garvey House, the UNIA ACL, which is the largest Black organization in modern history, gave us the red, black, and green flag. That was only a few blocks away. I didn't know about it, though. But my mother purchased my shoes right next door to the house of Garvey from 9 years old until 21 years old. We never knew that was the house of Garvey till after I almost graduated college. And I'm going to buy some more sneakers, right?
Yeah,
I'm 21.
21.
And I've been getting my shoes here since I was 9. And they painted it red, black, and green for the first time. And I said, whoa, what's going on over here? So the elder Johnny Gossett comes around the corner. He's one of the caretakers of the building. He's an ancestor now. Rest in peace. But he said, can I help you? And I said, what are y'all doing in here? I see the picture of the Honorable Marcus Garvey on the window. What are y'all doing in here? And he said, this is the UNIA. I knew Garvey, but I never heard of the organization. So he said, come back Sunday at 3 o'clock, because they've been meeting Sunday at 3 since Garvey started the organization in 1914, Kingston, Jamaica. And so I came back Sunday at 3. I never left. So if I'm not in that neighborhood, if I don't go to that school, if we don't buy shoes
from that place, I
miss all of it. So then in 6th grade, my father takes me to my first family reunion, Baltimore, Maryland. I'll never forget it because we stayed at the Days Inn Hotel. I don't know what I was thinking. I jumped into the deepest part of the swimming pool, not knowing how to swim. And guess what? A snow bunny came and saved me. All I saw was 2 vanilla breasts, and I grabbed them because I could have died. Thank you to that snow bunny, wherever you are, for saving the future prince of Pan-Africanism's life.
Oh, that's
at
funny.
that family reunion in Baltimore, we're walking in the back of a church, and there's all this Frederick Douglass memorabilia, his clothes, his shoes, his Bible. And I asked my father, I said, why is all this Frederick Douglass stuff here? And he said, because you're related to him. And I said, what? And of course, I learned who he was in Black History class, right? And in 3rd grade, backing up a little, in 3rd grade, we lived in Carolina for a few moments. That's why I decided to be a psychologist. 4th and 5th grade was Black History class. 6th grade, or 11 years old, that's when I found out I'm related to Frederick Douglass. So before I leave elementary school, I knew what I would be doing with the rest of my life, using my psychology degrees to fight for the liberation of African people. So in 2011, and this is important because tomorrow is the 11th anniversary, November 19th of 2011 to November 19th of 2024, I go to the Oyotunji African Village in Sheldon, South Carolina. I was going to Beaufort, South Carolina to speak, but the brother who hosted me said, have you ever heard of the Oyotunji African Village? It's the only Yoruba village that's considered such by Ile Ife in Nigeria. So they practice traditional African culture, right? So I go to this village. I never heard of it, right? I'm down here to speak. And Chief Alagba Alaitan, he's an ancestor now. He gives me my first African divination, Yoruba culture. So he does the reading. Then he says, we got to give you an African name. So he casts. There's a way you cast Ifa with the Opwele to communicate, with the spirit. And he cast and he cast and he said, that's not the name. That's not the name. And he cast. He said, Ifa says your first name is Ifa Tunde. Then he said, we got to give you a last name. Cast. Ifa says your last name is Oguntade. Ifa Tunde means destiny has returned. So when he gave me that name or not him, but when heaven gave me that name through him on November 19th of 2011, that was just the solidification of what I kind of always knew.
Always knew, yeah.
So this is me for good or for bad. And people say, how do you keep going? With the hate, with the love, with the expectations, with the setbacks, with the school. How do you keep going? It's because I believe I was born to do this.
100%.
This is my life.
This is your path, your purpose.
Whatever comes, whether I win, lose, or fail, whether it's a draw, God put me here to do this, and I'm comfortable with whatever outcome he chooses. My mother is the one who infected me, if you would, with this spirit of charity and humanity. She's a humanitarian. She loves to give. She loves to take care of people. She get the clothes off her back. I get that from her, which is good because it has served me well in this work. Because in this work, so many people are in Black consciousness for the wrong reasons.
Got you.
They do it for ego, money, power. For me, it's a service to my race. So I never get caught up in none of that. And I think people can feel that when they feel me. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
And so staying true to the principles my mother raised me on has really served me in this work. She wasn't a Pan-Africanist. My father wasn't a Pan-Africanist. That was in the DNA. You understand?
Yeah.
But the principles of being selfless, not being married to materialism, caring about other people as much as you care about yourself, that has really served me in this work. In 3rd grade, we were living in Jacksonville, North Carolina. I'm the oldest boy. of 5.
Oh, 5
I
siblings.
didn't
Okay.
have an older brother, so I didn't have anybody to talk to. And my father was kind of strict, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
So I wish I had an older brother.
Yeah.
So I said, when I grow up, I'm going to be the older brother that other children can talk to when they don't have nobody else. You feel me?
got you,
So
got
I
you.
made that decision at 7 or 8 in Carolina.
To become a psychologist.
Yes. I don't even know where I heard the word, but I knew. I was already saying it in 3rd grade, I'm going to be a psychologist.
Was there at any point, like, did your parents end up teaching you about financial literacy at all? Okay,
They definitely taught me the importance of saving. They taught me the importance of thrift. They taught me the importance of living within your means. Yeah. They taught me to appreciate money, but not to fall in love with it. My parents were very, very, they were pragmatic financially. You know, they didn't worship money. They didn't need the finer things in life.
Got you.
You know, we valued spirit, relationship with God, each other. You know, a lot of traditional African types of values is what we had. And I thank them for that, because I don't think I could do the work that I do if I ever fell in love with materialism.
Material items.
You know, I didn't buy a new car until after my, I had a 2-door 1995 GMC Jimmy.
Damn, you know.
And I love that truck. And it died one day. Coming back from York, Pennsylvania, where I was speaking back to Philadelphia. It's about a 3-hour drive.
Got you.
And it died. And when I took it to my mechanic, who had always repaired it in the past, he said
it's game over.
Dead.
It's game over.
And I still wish I could get my Jimmy back. And, you know, all my fellow psychologists in the school district of Philadelphia, they were like, you need a new car. We make good money. Why I don't care about that. My purpose in life is to liberate my people. I don't care about expensive junk. That don't mean nothing.
That doesn't mean anything. Yeah.
I don't care about it.
No, incredible. Okay, so what I want to really focus on today, Dr. Umar, as we were speaking before, is some of the, you know, some of the issues, especially within the African diaspora community when it comes to financial literacy and, you know, some of the issues that we really struggle with when it comes to us being able to elevate, just like other communities are, right? So if we look at, for example, we were talking about it before, like the Indian communities and, you know, a lot of these other communities are able to find stability in the community. So I really wanted to understand, like, what do you think some of the issues are that we're struggling with in the community in order for us to be able to elevate, just like how other communities are able to, to move forward?
Okay, when we talk about the financial crisis within the African race, and I would say it's a Pan-Africanist issue because I see it throughout the diaspora and on the continent. Okay. Number one, we are married to capitalism. Okay. We do not practice cooperative economics. We do very little together financially. Most of our collective work is focused within religion, but it is not focused within economics. We are not building hospitals together. We are not building schools together. We are not building supermarkets together. We're not running farms together. We are not creating the institutions that we need. Cooperative economics is what's keeping African people behind the 8 ball in comparison to all the other human families. When you look at Chinese, when you look at European Jews, when you look at the Arabs, when you look at East Indians, Anglo-Saxons, everybody's working together on some level. Those communities are not utopias either, but they do cooperate economically.
100%.
They'll buy a whole street and turn it into businesses for their community.
100%.
They'll buy a whole shopping mall and turn it into businesses for their community. We don't do that. We are allergic to using our money to further our reality. Understand this, a people who are politically disorganized will be economically disorganized. Your economic disorganization will feed your political disorganization. Show me anybody who's strong politically. You got to be strong economically. And I'll tell you why. Who controls the politicians and the policies? People with money. Correct. The wealthy.
The wealthy.
You have to pay to play. Politics is not controlled by votes. Politics is controlled by funding the politicians. Period. The hand that pays is the hand that rules. We never use our money to control the political behavior of elected officials. That's why we're always dead last. Everyone else, they're showing up before they run to say, listen, this is what we need. What are you willing to give us in exchange for this money? We don't do that. We vote, but we don't use our financial power to help dictate the policy. So we got to get into cooperative economics. There's no way African people are going to catch up in this race for global domination without practicing cooperative economics. Second, there is no redistribution of African wealth within the African community.
That's the problem.
Our money circulates once, maybe twice, before it goes into another community. Look at the Chinese dollar, or whatever their currency is called, the yen or what have you. Chinese currency circulates about 20 times before it leaves. European Jews, 30 times before it leaves. Anglo-Saxons, 7 times before it leaves. Africans once. You have to circulate the dollar. We don't circulate our currency.
Can I ask you, but where did that come from? Because like, obviously, like if you just look at other communities, as you've mentioned, they have so much stability. Like I'll give you an example. I've been in banking for about 10 years now, okay? And in banking, what I see a lot of, for example, if I have to say, let's use the Indians as an example, right? So they have a system in place. So if in order for you to buy a house in Australia, what they do is a lot of them have brokers that are within their community. They have, finance, credit people that are within their community.
Infrastructure.
So infrastructure. So everything that goes through to the point where they actually physically own the house goes to their system. So I just want to know, like, what is it with us? Like, where did this actually start from, this behavior of like separation? Because that's just something I just have never been able to fully understand.
The thing that keeps all the other human families together, races, if you would, is the fact that they have a cultural commitment that was beat out of us. They're proud to be who they are, and they want to see their group win. We are not proud of who we are, and we don't want to see African people win. Take Australia, take the UK, take the US. Tribalism is disintegrating any type of an economic united front that we could build for ourselves. South Sudanese over here, Ethiopian over here, Eritrea, Somali, Congolese, Ghanaian. You can't win like that. You gotta have a united front. Now, granted, the other groups may not all work together in unison from nation to nation, but they work together enough to not be in conflict with each other. In other words, the Koreans may do their own thing separate from the Chinese, but the Koreans are not conflicting with the Chinese, because although we may have our own issues with each other, we see a greater Asian agenda here, and we are not going to step on each other's toes. The Arab groups don't all get along, but guess what? They're not going to step on each other's toes and let the blacks win or let the Indians win. There is still a collective responsibility to look out for the race. Even if they practice in tribalism, we don't do that. We will destroy everybody else to only focus on our own in-group. And then even with our in-groups, we will split that and tribalize that even further. So even the community of one will end up being a community of 30, separated by petty differences. Until African people hate dysfunction and racism more than we hate each other, we'll never get free. Our economic reality is an outward manifestation of our psychological devastation. You'll never fix Black economics if you don't fix Black identity. The reason Chinese shop Chinese, they proud to be Chinese. We are often looking for what? Acceptance by other people, and we are looking to integrate in other people's reality. So we intentionally shop non-Black. We intentionally shop anti-African. I want to spend my money with the Caucasian Australians because in shopping with the Caucasian Australians, I'm giving myself an artificial sense of belonging to them.
So this behavior of stepping on each other's toes and doing all this, what do you think the ultimate solution is in order for us to be able to get to a point where we, where we can manage to work with each other? I know you touched on it a bit, and I did, and I don't want to make you repeat yourself, but I just want you to really go into as much detail as you can, because it's something that, it's very important that we hear this message.
If I'm in Australia and we've had this conversation at Victoria University, we had it yesterday in Queensland with the Biafra family. The first thing we need to do in Australia is we need to have an Australian African Union, our own African Union. Find the appropriate representatives from every African nationality in this country and create an Australian African Union. Once a month, we're going to sit down and talk about the business of being African together and what we can do together. So, for example, earlier, Brother McGang said that we don't have our own community center. That's unacceptable.
That's unacceptable.
So the first project of the Australian African Union, AAU, is to put our money together, do some fundraising, and let's purchase an all-African community center for all of us. So if the Somalis need to celebrate their Independence Day, they got the space to do it. The Congolese family need to celebrate their Independence Day, they got the space to do it. The Ethiopians need to celebrate Ethiopian New Year in September, they have their space to do it.
Space, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, is this a global issue? Like,
It's
I
a
know
global
you've traveled.
issue. Oh, it's everywhere. I ain't been nowhere on earth where there's not petty differences. When I go to South Africa, and I love South Africa, can't wait to go back. They're so politically active. I love it. The activism of South Africa's youth is one of the most inspiring things I've encountered in modern time. But when I go to South Africa, I make it clear. I'm not here as a Xhosa. I'm not here as a Zulu. I'm not here as a Swazi. I'm not here as a Khoi. If y'all working with Dr. Umar, we are here as African. When I'm in Nigeria, I'm not here as Igbo. I'm not here as Yoruba. I'm not here as Hausa, Fulani. I'm here as African.
African, that's it, yeah. Point.
In the Caribbean, same thing.
Yeah.
In the States, same thing. We are a race, as the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said, that are cursed with petty differences. We hate each other more than we hate what's done to us.
I hope you guys are enjoying the episode. Shout out to Black Wealth Connect. Thank you for being a part of our journey, supporting the studio, supporting the library and the museum. For those of you that are watching, guess what? We've got other amenities and services here for you. We've got a studio so that you guys can record your podcast. Whether it's about Black Wealth Connect, it's all yours. Also got a photography studio just behind me. Talk to us and we'll help you. We also got excursions. If you want to learn about the African history for your school or for your community organization, come down, we'll teach you all about it, from the birth of man to the dawn of civilization and further. We've got 2 amazing art galleries. We can display some of your work for the community to see and support, whether it's with reading groups, cultural events, or you want to use whatever that we have, it's all yours. So please come down, support us, and we'll support you too. Thank you.
One of the reasons I would very much love to get in contact with the Sahel Alliance, President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso and the others of Niger and Mali, is we need to create an African mental health delivery service system in Africa. One of the biggest concerns I have with the African continent, even as someone who practices African spirituality, is the fact that in Africa, mental health is not taken as seriously as it should be. Our brothers and sisters on the continent are hurting. Every time I go to Africa, I try to hold some kind of a talk or seminar on mental health. You got war trauma, you got domestic trauma. In East Africa, we have, the sexual abuse of our women, how they get in their, private areas vandalized, if you would. So there's so much that's being done to African people in Africa, and they have no way to process it. And the African heads of state aren't taking it seriously.
They're not taking it serious now.
One thing I would love to do, 2 things I would love to do for Africa. Number 1 is be a part of a continent-wide United States of Africa educational machine that's going to reinvent education for our children so we can take over the world the way the Chinese did. That's 1. Number 2, I want to be part of a continent-wide United States of Africa mental health machine where we create a service delivery model to meet the needs of our people. Because one day we're going to have to fight white supremacy. We don't go back to being who we are without armed struggle. That ain't the first stage of revolution, though. It's the final. But you're going to have an armed struggle. How can we win a struggle against our oppressors where most of our people are spiritually and psychologically broken?
Yeah, damaged, yeah.
You understand?
Yeah, 100%.
A house divided against itself cannot stand. Until we heal the minds and spirits of African people, we will not be able to heal African people. And that's why education and mental health are two of the most critical things that we can address. We are so quick to go to the nation building, so quick to go to the war, the military. Time out. Deal with the spirits and minds of our children and our people. Because if you don't heal the spirit, the soul, the mind, and if you don't properly educate that mind, what are we fighting for?
What are we fighting? Exactly. You mentioned something about the education system, just switching gears a bit. Like, I know that I've watched a lot of your interviews, and you always talk about how the education system needs a lot more work towards it, right? So I just want to get your perspective on like the education system itself. Like even me growing up, like when I went through my schooling, I didn't even learn anything about financial literacy. There was nothing I learned in all the time I was at school. It's only when you leave school and then, for example, you go out and take your first finance on your, like you take out a loan for your vehicle, or you start taking out credit cards, and then your credit file starts to get damaged, or your credit report. That's when you start to actually realize, oh, okay, you know, you're going to go buy a house, for example, and then now you can't buy a house because the bank's declined you. So all these lessons and all these things that we learn only come at very hard periods of our time when we're trying to build our lives. The education system never taught me that. What is your perspective on the education system, and how do you think that we can improve that, especially for the African community, in order for us to learn more about financial literacy and things that are important to us?
This is a very timely question, because yesterday I read on one of my news streams that Sean Carter, Jay-Z, is partnering with the Wharton School of Business, based in Philadelphia, the University of Pennsylvania. That's one of the elite universities. He's partnering with the Wharton School of Business to bring a financial literacy course to the HBCUs in America, which is a power move, right? Because from what I read, Mr. Carter plans to give every HBCU student, historically Black college and university, access to financial literacy. If he does that, I will have to stand and applaud him, because that is something that is missing from our community. And for him to target the HBCUs to do that, that is a very, very worthy thing of him to do.
Are you able to say what the HBCUs?
Historically
So we don't have
Black college and university.
Okay, we don't have
so
that.
These are the institutions of higher learning in America.
Okay, got it.
That were built either during slavery or immediately thereafter to prepare our ancestors on how to succeed in a racist, competitive America, having just come out of slavery.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
And so for Jay-Z to do that, I think it's powerful. Now, if he were to ask me, is it the most powerful thing he could do? I would say no. The most powerful thing you could do is build a Black college based on financial literacy. Right? But I love where he's starting, and I want to give credit where credit is due. To your question, the Rockefeller Foundation. The Rockefeller Foundation created a board of education. You want to research this. The Rockefeller Board of Education. Why would an oil company be interested in having their own board of education? Because they decided that in order to control the society 100%. And remain the giants of capitalism, they had to control what children were taught in school. 100%. And so the Rockefeller Board of Education financed public school districts around America to make sure they did not teach financial literacy. They said if the children learned financial literacy, they would be able to rival us for power. So we have to deliberately keep the children dumb through public education. And I'm paraphrasing, but we have to deliberately keep the children dumb through public education to make sure they never learn what we learn, the laws of money. And that's why even in elite public high schools, Australia, America, UK, elsewhere, very seldom do they teach the laws of money and finance. That was deliberately kept out to protect the monopoly of the power holders.
I know you're in the process of, because you touched on education and schooling and all that, I know that you're also doing some incredible work with the school that you're developing. Are you able to tell some of the viewers about some of the incredible stuff that you're doing? Because I've researched on it. It's absolutely amazing, but
yes, sir.
We'd love to hear it from you.
The Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy, when completed, will be the first school in American history built exclusively by the African diaspora. Every penny that we got from African people from every continent. It'll be the first school of its kind to be built by us as a race in America. And so at FDMG, we're going to focus on agricultural science, agronomical science, political science, military science, spiritual and cosmological science, science of the black man, woman, and child, and financial and economic science. Financial literacy will be a cornerstone of our program because I'm sick and tired of black children being told they got to go to college to make something of themselves when the top 1% richest people in the world never sat in a college seat a day in their lives.
Let me ask you, Dr. Umar, you know, the African people, black people, however you want to label it, we're some of the most incredible people on earth. We dominate sport. We dominate music. We dominate everything, right? So I know that education is very important, and especially like in order for us to be able to control what we are doing, right? Like, and when I say control what we're doing, let me elaborate a bit on that more. So because we're so talented and you know, we have so much power, what is it that you feel that is missing in order for us to be able to hold on to that stuff and almost just keep it without people interfering in it? Because someone like Jay-Z, for example, I'll just give you an example. He has enough funds or, you know, enough capital to be able to create something that just caters to the black community. What is it that you think at some level that they're not able to establish these things? Like,
the biggest reason why the black billionaires and millionaires are not creating these economic opportunities, they would much rather pay for education, right, as opposed to create economic opportunity, is they understand how racist America is. And they also understand that being rich in America is a privilege, not a right, if you're black. And if you are seen as an instrument of black liberation, especially as a millionaire or a billionaire, they will take your life. For example, Johnny Cochran, who defended O.J. Simpson and got Geronimo Pratt, the ex-Black Panther, off of his 27-year sentence for free. Johnny Cochran, at the time of his death, was investigating how much money America owed the descendants of the enslaved Africans for their unpaid labor, and they killed him for it. You understand? Oprah understands how racist America is. Kanye, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Rihanna, Tiger Woods, Serena, Bob Johnson, they understand how racist America is. And if they are seen as a catalyst for black economic empowerment, they can be brought to their demise.
But just on that, just not just necessarily just touching on America too, because if you look at
It's
you know
global.
Africa in general,
global.
there's so many people that have so much power, and you know, like almost like they don't have the capability to be able to create something for the
And it's
community.
not all fear.
Yeah.
A lot of it is also selfishness. Remember,
Yeah.
we have been hypnotized by the demon of European capitalism. Many of us are simply interested in being the HNIC, the head Negro in charge. I want to be the richest black man in Australia, and I don't want to help other black men become rich because I glory in knowing I'm the only one
that has
at my level. And we have that very bad as African people. It's global. Crabs in a barrel, as Booker T. Washington called it. We don't like to see other black people win.
What is your advice to like some of the young kids? Because this, for me, like especially when it comes to the Black Wealth Connect and everything I'm trying to develop, it's to be able to create a better path for the youth, because I wasn't able to have all of that stuff when I was much younger.
Having money without a political mission is a crisis. Having wealth without a purpose for using it to better your people is asinine.
Yeah, purpose there.
And the problem we have with our young people, they are in the pursuit of money for the purpose of money itself. Getting money is their goal. It is not their path. I want money so I can do things with it to serve my own people. They want money just so they can buy expensive junk that white people make. So for me, economic opportunity has to be married to educational empowerment. If you got money, but you don't know what you should do with it, if you got education, but you have no access to wealth, what good is it? Our economic imperative must be married to our educational agenda. You cannot separate the two. A big reason why you have the academic crisis in Australia, America, UK, Toronto, South Africa, the academic crisis of young black boys failing, dropping out, is due to the fact that doing well in school is not married to any economic opportunity. If you told black boys in Australia right now, the higher you achieve in class, the greater economic opportunities you will have in this society, they will be on honor roll every marking period. Every marking period. The economic success of black boys is not automatically tied, the academic success of black boys isn't automatically tied to economic success. And that's why I said at Victoria University, we got to fight in Australia to put the industrial building trades in the schools. If you teach these young men how to be plumbers and electricians and carpenters and welders and roofers and auto mechanics, they will stay, because getting this training is going to allow me to get a decent job or start my own business. They can see how A equals B. But telling me to do well in school without no economic opportunity connected with it. My father did well in school. He's struggling. My mother graduated from high school with high marks. She's damn near homeless. They are not seeing how this education is actually leading to an opportunity for my life after I finish. Marry the economics to the education, our children will be unstoppable. It's the complete opposite with white children, because with white children, they benefit from white privilege. So for white kids, they know, if I just finish the university, if I just finish high school, I could be the dumbest kid in my class. But if I finish, I know I'm getting a CEO job. I know I'm taking over mom's business. You see that?
Exactly.
White kids know, if I finish, I'm getting a chance. Black children's academic success isn't automatically tied to economic opportunity, and there's research to prove it.
Two last things, Dr. Umar. So just when it comes to funding, especially within the African community, funding is something that's very hard, right? So like when it comes to, for example, there's so many brilliant kids that are doing so many amazing things, but whenever they try and get access to funding or try and get a grant, for example, grants are one of the hardest things to get in Australia, and I could imagine globally. What do you how can we rectify that issue if there is a solution?
I don't know what the GNP is for Africans in Australia, but in the United States, the GNP is $2 trillion. The American African community is the 10th richest economic power on earth. We own and control almost no institutions. So when you say young people have ideas, but they can't get the funding, it's not because we don't have it in the community. We have it. I just saw when Kamala Harris announced her campaign for presidency a couple weeks ago, the African-American community gave Kamala Harris $30 million in one night. Kamala Harris got $30 million in one night from black people. And to your point, we got young people who can't fund their entrepreneurial ideas because black people do not prioritize our children. We do not prioritize the advancement of the black community. And we do not prioritize black excellence. And the only way you're going to get us to do that is to take these babies in Australia, Melbourne, Queensland, Sydney, Perth, and you got to raise them with the ambition and the motivation to want to succeed, not as individuals, but together. United we stand, divided we fall. Most people think the most important job of an educator is to teach. No, the most important job of a school is to socialize. The most important job of a school is to teach the students how to work together for the benefit of the community. Chinese children are not just taught, they're socialized to work together for the benefit of China. Indian children aren't just taught, they're socialized. Black children are taught, they're not socialized. The hardest thing to get black people to do is to work together for their own benefit. And that's why leadership, at least in FDMG, would be a course in and of itself. We're not educating you to go become a billionaire. We're educating you to become a leader of African people, to lead the charge for a new black world order.
We definitely need more role models in the community. 100% more leaders, because
who believe in collectivism. Not I-ism. Because you have a lot of black capitalists running around trying to convince our kids that you should just imitate white capitalism.
Correct.
Just be the black Bill Gates. Be the black Donald Trump. Be the black Joe Biden. We don't want to be the black version of white people. We have our own culture, our own ethics, our own economic system. But the problem is we no longer value it, because what white people did so brilliantly is they convinced their victims to believe that because we dominated you, enslaved you, colonized you, the way that you once lived is irrelevant and ineffective. No, it's not. White people didn't dominate blacks because they were intellectually superior. White people dominated Africans because they were the most ruthless and the most reckless. They completely divorced their political agenda from any ethical or moral platform. African people, we are an ethical people. We are a moral people. We have a cultural code that doesn't allow us to take advantage of people unjustifiably. Europeans don't have that. So the most humanitarian people in history, African people, came face to face with the most ruthless and unethical people to ever walk the earth, the Caucasian. And it was that clash of culture that gave birth to slavery and colonization.
Just before we wrap up, I just want you to kind of just leave a message, you know, to especially like Australian community or even just the African diaspora community on, you know, just stuff that we can do to improve ourselves, get better, because obviously over time, the generations, hopefully there's going to be one day. And also want you to even touch like towards the end of it, just see, do you feel as though like we're ever going to get to a point within the African diaspora community where we are actually going to be able to take charge of everything and be able to move forward as a collective?
There's an African proverb that says, whenever you see a new African baby born, that is a message from the Creator that he has not given up on black people yet. When God is done with us, no woman will be able to conceive another child. As long as our sisters can conceive life, there's still a chance for us to win. With that being said, we have to infect our children with the disease of freedom. There was a woman by the name of Mama Solitude, an African freedom fighter in Guadeloupe, French territory.
Yeah.
When Napoleon Bonaparte sought to reinstitute slavery in 1800, this black woman who was pregnant rose up against Napoleon, and she joined with other freedom fighters in Guadeloupe. And during the war, they were starting to run out of ammunition. And they said, we got to block the French from getting to the heartland of our island because they'll be able to dominate, destroy, and re-enslave our people. So this black woman, pregnant with a child, decided to blow herself up in order to stop the French soldiers from getting to the community. She survived the bombing. Her two comrades did not. The French caught her. She was in prison, but they wouldn't kill her until she gave birth to the child. After she gave birth to the child, they beheaded her. While she was in prison, waiting to be assassinated, she cursed the French the entire time. And her last words before she died was, live free or die. When African children are infected with the disease of freedom, when our children are so pregnant with the thirst to be independent of any other group, then we will be free. When freedom and independence becomes the most important thing on the African tongue, the most important thing in the African ear, the most important thing in the African conversation, only when we become infected with the disease of freedom will we be free. Frederick Douglass said, the struggle must be everything or it is nothing. It must take precedence over everything or it will take precedence over no thing. Until we are absolutely convicted, infected, and committed to our liberation, will we take it serious.
Dr. Umar, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast, Black Wealth Connect. Honestly, like I told you, it means a lot to me because I know that you're super busy. You have a lot on your schedule. My brother, from brother to brother, it means absolutely the world to me for you to jump on this podcast. You don't know how life-changing that is, and it's a pleasure to meet you in person.
Likewise.
Man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
Thank you.